Welcome back everybody. In today's short video, we're going to be going over how to do the Apollo caster mod on your crazy cart. So let's jump right into this. This is everything you'll need to do the modification. So let's start with the casters themselves. You can get these off of apollocaster.com and I'll have the link in the description below. So you can just click on that link, order a set, and you'll have the right thing. You're also going to want to get a set of these 70mm longboard wheels off of Amazon. They come with the bearings and spacers pressed into them already. Go ahead and order a set of those. Then you're also going to want to get an extra set of spacers. You can order these off of Amazon as well. And again, link is in the description below. So order all three of these things, and then let's just go over some kind of tools that you'll want to have in your garage to make your life easier. Having a table vise will make this 10 times easier and save you a lot of time. So if you don't have a table vise, I don't know if you really want to attack this job. It might be a kind of hard holding the caster in place while you drill it out, but it's probably doable without a vise. You're also going to want some sort of locking pliers. You're going to need some sandpaper, preferably an electronic sander or a grinder. That way you can grind down the spacer to the appropriate length to make the wheel centered in the caster. You're also going to want some sort of metal file or sandpaper. And then you're going to want some sort of measurement tool like a ruler, tape measure, or caliper. And then the most important thing you're going to need is a stepping drill bit that has at least a 3/8 size as its maximum drilling capacity. What that's used for is to drill out the center locking ring on the Apollo casters. That way we can put our kingpin from the crazy cart in them and lock it onto the drift bar. So with that all out of the way, let's get started, and I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do. So the first step here is to obviously take your old casters off of your cart. I lost the GoPro footage on how to do that, but it's fairly straightforward. You just unscrew it from your cart. And then you're going to want to start with your Apollo casters by removing the center axle and the two wheels that come on the caster. That just takes two 13mm sockets, or a 13mm wrench and a 13mm socket. You can pop those two stock wheels off of the Apollo caster. Keep the center axle and the nut that you took off of the Apollo caster because we're going to reuse that. You're then going to want to take the caster and lock it into your vise. You don't want to apply so much pressure that you bend the caster, but just enough to lock it in place. And then you're going to want to come in with some locking pliers and actually lock the top portion of the caster to the bottom portion. Because when we're done drilling it out, what's going to happen is that center locking ring is going to come apart. And so now the caster is actually technically serviceable. So you can go in there and re-grease the ball bearings. You can replace ball bearings, certain things like that. But it will be, separated. So you want to make sure that it doesn't fall apart, and you don't want to lose all your ball bearings either. So once you have the caster locked into your table vise, then you're going to want to grab your stepping drill bit. Use a little bit of WD-40 to lube it up, so that way it doesn't ruin your drill bit as quick. And you don't want to use a lot of pressure while you're doing this. You just want to apply enough pressure just to start seeing the metal shavings coming off of that center locking ring. And you're going to let this stepping drill bit do its job. As you continuously drill, it'll further bore that center locking ring out to a certain point where it'll actually break and come apart. So once it comes apart, I'll show you what that looks like. So when you finish drilling, you'll feel a substantial pop, and you'll also see the top locking ring separate from the bottom locking ring, and it just looks like two circular pieces of metal. So once those are separated, go ahead and clean out all the metal shavings, and if necessary, re-lube that top ball bearing. Go ahead and grab your crazy cart kingpin that you removed from the stock caster. Take the crush washer and the locking washer off of it, and you're going to want to just put a lot of blue Loctite on there. Drop that kingpin through the new Apollo caster, and this is now what is going to hold the whole caster together. So make sure when you're screwing this into place that you're holding the caster together, because there's no locking ring in it. So once the kingpin is tight into the drift bar, it'll lock your caster together and nothing will come apart. But while you're screwing it in, it's important to hold all the pieces together. That way your ball bearings don't come flying out and go everywhere. So you'll see I grab it with my two fingers from the top, or from I guess the left and right side you call it, Once it's tight enough, I grab my socket and I go ahead and I snug it up. That way I can grab the actual wrench and torque it down. And with that blue Loctite, it should, never vibrate loose, and you should be good for quite a while. So we're pretty much wrapped up with step 1 of the mod, which is getting the kingpin installed in it. Step 2 is actually grinding down the spacers. That way we can use the 70mm longboard wheels with it. So once you get the kingpin installed and torqued down, you can go ahead and grab 2 of those spacers that you ordered. And what I use is just like a belt sander, and it works great. So just grab the spacer with, a pair of locking pliers. That way you don't tear your fingers up. And the goal is to grind the spacer down to 4mm. So it's about half of what the spacer is. They're about 8mm full length. You want to get it down to just around 4mm. And if it's not perfect, don't worry. When you snug them together on the caster, it'll sandwich whatever space is left, making it snug. So grind these spacers down to get to about 4mm. Doesn't take forever. It depends what kind of setup you have. Some people will use a grinding wheel, hacksaw, and then hand kind of file it down smooth. However you want to get the job done, doesn't matter, as long as you get these spacers to 4mm. So once you have the spacers ground down to 4mm, you can then come over to the cart and install the wheel itself. So you're going to need, you can't use your stock spacers that came on the cart. So you're going to use the 2 ground down spacers and then 2 additional spacers the full length. So it's going to be roughly 12mm on each side of spacer, locking it into the center. So follow the same procedure that you see here. Basically, keep the wheel upright. That way, when you drop the spacers into it, it's easier to align with the center axle. There's also a spacer inside of the wheel between the 2 bearings. You can use like a little zip tie or a little pick or a smaller Allen key to align that with the center axle. And once you have everything aligned, you can then take your 2 13mm wrenches and tighten that caster up. Make sure it's not too snug. Sometimes if your sanding job wasn't perfectly even, if it's too snug, it will actually apply uneven pressure on the center of that wheel, making it, not spin freely. So just if it's too snug, back off a half or a quarter a turn, and you should have enough movement in that wheel. You can also use blue Loctite on these, but since I'm going to be replacing wheels quite frequently on this thing, I'm not going to putting blue Loctite on the center axle and nut here. But once you have everything installed and tightened, you're good to go riding. Go ahead and try it out. These wheels are a lot more grippy. You got a lot more contact. So without the drift bar up, you're not going to go sliding around turns. But the second you start pulling that drift bar, they bite a lot more into the concrete and the floor. So you get a little bit more control out of them. They're also a little bit smoother. So hope this video helped you guys. Again, everything's going to be in the description below for you to order. If you have any questions, comment down below and I'll try and help you out. All right, that's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.